Hello and welcome to Experience of the Soul, a weekly space to help you grow, prosper, and take ownership of your life. Each week, spiritual teacher and author Cynthia Alice Anderson invites us into deeper conversations about faith and consciousness. Today's episode continues last week's Unpopular dialogue. This is part 2, and it takes us deeper into forgiveness as a way of life. So we invite you to listen with an open heart. And now, Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to the Experience of the Soul podcast. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I'm the owner, founder, and host of the show today. And so happy to have you along with us, my friends. We are so happy to be in the month of January and a lot of great energy coming into the channel and the show, and you're a part of it. And also we want to welcome in our producer today, Mr. Sean Kilgore. What a gift he is to us.
Thank you very much. That means a lot to me. I appreciate that. Welcome, everybody. This is episode 396 of Experience of the Soul. I am blessed and honored to be with you as always. Before we jump into today's show, which is going to be a continuation of last week's show. So we're continuing with an unpopular dialogue. So this is going to be part 2 of this little, I guess, mini series, we could call it.
Yes. Who knew? Who knew?
Right. But before we get to it, of course, we want to give you this week in spiritual history. So, of course, as RCA just said, we're moving deeper into January. And this week invites us to reflect on courage, conscience, and the quiet ways transformation actually takes root and happens in our lives. So across the traditions that we'll discuss today, we're going to see reminders that growth often begins within and then ripples outward into the world. We often speak of this kindness in this way. And, you know, growth is the same. And we talked a lot about it last week. The work begins within in order to keep these goals, to set these intentions. These aren't just, I want to lose 50 pounds in 2 months, kind of, like how you had said, right. But let's jump into it here, friends. Of course, today is Monday, January 19th, and it is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Now, this is observed in the U.S. This day honors the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose vision of justice was rooted in love, nonviolence, and spiritual courage. His work continues to remind us that faith isn't passive. It calls us to live our values out loud, even when it's uncomfortable.
Amen to that. Well, I can't say enough good, about Dr. King. And, being from Atlanta, our family was associated and engaged in the civil rights movement. I think what often gets missed about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is, we know him for his great speaking skill and his, ability to manage his emotional state. But not only that, he was a great organizer of people, and so many people were a part of the movement. I want to mention, if you've never been to the Civil Rights Museum in Atlanta, it is one of the most powerful experiences. And of course, there's a great deal about Dr. King there. But if you've never been there and you happen to be traveling in Atlanta, it is worth the time, money, and energy to go. It's life-changing. Or to get down to Ebenezer Baptist, which is in Atlanta too. When you walk in, his voice is playing over the speakers. Yeah, it's really something. So, we found out, over time that he was a human and didn't do everything perfectly, but what he did for nobody does, but what he did for civil rights in this country is unmatched in my view. Yeah. Yeah, so definitely honor Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his legacy and his family, what they gave up, for him and to be of service was pretty miraculous anyway.
Yeah, amen. I love that you said just recently in one of the talks, you had mentioned, I think somebody had asked for prayers for the government, and you had said something like, the government is just people.
It is. We act like it's something, but it's like churches. We say the church. Well, what is the church? Is just a building. The church is the people, know. If we can change hearts, the government would be great.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So this Wednesday, January 21st, is what's known as the Feast of Saint Agnes. This is in the Christian tradition. Saint Agnes is remembered for her unwavering faith and inner strength.
Mm-hmm.
She's often associated with purity of heart and devotion. Her story invites us to consider the power of staying true to our deepest convictions, even in the face of pressure or fear.
Well, I love that name, Agnes, St. Agnes. I'm hearing it in a New York accent, unfortunately. Agnes, you know, uh, uh, you can pray to St. Agnes. Oh my goodness. Yes.
That's
What a
right.
great
Yeah.
reminder. What a great reminder. Yeah.
Yeah. This weekend, so starting Friday and into Saturday, beginning sundown Friday and continuing through the Saturday, is what is known as Tu Bishvat. This is known as the Jewish New Year of the Trees. It's a celebration of nature, growth, and renewal, a time to honor roots, nourishment, and the unseen processes that allow life to flourish. Spiritually, it asks us all, what are you cultivating beneath the surface?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Great question today, especially with what we're doing. Yeah.
Big time. This Sunday, January 25th, is what's known as the conversion of St. Paul. This is, again, in the Christian observance, and it marks a profound turning point, the moment when Paul the Apostle experienced a radical change of heart and direction. It's a powerful reminder that transformation can happen in an instant, and that no one is ever beyond awakening or redirection or grace.
Gosh, makes me want to cry. What a powerful idea.
Yeah. And just for fun, friends, and I really can't believe that we're talking about food because I still feel full from the holidays. But this Friday,
well, after your mom's cooking, no wonder. My goodness,
I don't know what I'm going to do when they head back up north for the summer. I'm like, what do I eat now? But yeah, this Friday, January 23rd, National Pie Day. If you didn't get enough in December, we're going to celebrate pie on this day. So yeah, this is, I know there's another pie day, the actual, the number pie, right? That's another day.
The number pie.
Right? You know what I mean?
Not keep your fork, there's pie, but pie and math.
Yes, yeah. But of course, this is a lighthearted celebration of comfort and sweetness, and maybe a reminder that joy too is a spiritual practice worth savoring.
Wow.
What's your favorite pie?
Well, I mean, I'm from Georgia, so it's pecan pie.
Oh, I do love pecan pie. Yeah.
Well, but really, we grew up on more cobbler though than pecan pie. So more cobblers, like apple cobbler, peach cobbler, yum.
I love a good apple crisp.
Yeah, apple crisp. Yeah. You can't beat it with a stick, as we say.
Nice. I love it. All right. Fred, something to think about. Where in your life are you being invited to grow? Not by force, but by faith and by patience and by quiet courage. So I'll leave you to think about that as I welcome you officially to episode 396. We are again talking about an unpopular dialogue.
Well, friends, I hope you've been doing your forgiveness work. I thought about bringing my pages over and holding them up and saying, see, I'm doing it. I promise. I hope you are doing it. And if some of you started last week, you are finishing up this week. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about it and what to expect after the process, because forgiveness, the way I teach it, is really an ongoing process and not something you do, once every 12 years, but something that it becomes a little bit of a way of life. I mean, I know so many that are struggling now with anxiety or depression or have, illnesses of that can be exacerbated by, anger and rage and my friend's forgiveness freeze. And so, last week we were talking about that if there's, a dream, goal, and desire that you want to manifest, that, forgiveness is a key to releasing energy to help you move forward. And so we want to talk a little bit more deeply about that and encourage you in that, because forgiveness is not a one-time event. It is a way of life. And I want to reiterate that, because if you get done with those 7 days And my suggestion last week was do the 70 times 7. Start with yourself. Remember, we said that. Start with yourself. And then the next step, though, might be writing that energy a little bit. And if there's somebody else in your life you're having an issue with, or someone in your life that you are really expecting something of and they are not doing what you're expecting, in other words, you're having a faulty expectations, you're having unrealistic expectations, all of those expectations are rooted in the ego. They are rooted in the mind. They are not rooted in soul. And sometimes those expectations could even be what I call past life bleed throughs, because so many people in our lives that are in our lives currently are have been in our lives before, and at certain times, at certain ages, things get activated and we start expecting things that maybe are from a whole different lifetime. Now, if you're new to this idea of past lives and everything, you might be saying, I have enough to work on this lifetime. Well, that's what I'm saying, is that the work is this lifetime, even if it's from another lifetime. So, the only reason I mention past lives is sometimes it can give you an awareness of why some of these things might be coming up. This can even happen physically. There's a book, Sean, I don't know if you had ever read her, remember her. She was very, very popular at one time. Her name was Sylvia Brown. Sylvia Brown, you remember her? Yeah. And
absolutely.
she had a book. It'd be great if you could put it in the show notes. I just didn't think about it until just now.
Sure.
But she had a book called Past Lives, Future Healing. And she talked a great deal about how, I mean, she had hundreds of cases of this where people would come to her with physical issues and nothing had happened this lifetime to cause the ailment. Like somebody had, for instance, a feeling that they had been injured in their back, and they go to the doctor, and the doctor says there's nothing wrong with you. We've done scans, we've done blah blah blah, and they go it's all in your head. It's psychosomatic or whatever. But anyway, they'd finally find their way to Sylvia Brown, and in her doing some guided visualization work and what many might call hypnotherapy or hypnosis, she would, or regression, some people would call it past life regression. She would take them back to a time when the injury happened, and invariably they would be the same age as they were now in the past life when the injury happened. So why am I saying this? Well, I'm saying this because we are energetic beings. We don't really talk about that in regular life anymore. We're also, plugged in and smart and all that these days, that we don't talk about the kind of earthy aspect that we are, the energetic aspect that we are. And so if it's time to heal something, or if you're 40 years old and in the last life you were hit over the head and died, I mean, I know that's a crude example. At 40, you might struggle with headaches and not know why. Does that make sense what I'm saying, Sean? I don't talk about this very much, but I've seen it. Yeah, but I've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. I've seen it many times with clients of my own and have been able to help them through it as well. So I'm saying all this because everything we hold on to is energy, right? So resentments, fears, angers, frustrations, rage, even joys. If you hold on to a joy too long and expect everything to be that exact joy, even that needs release and forgiveness. So this idea of forgiveness, last week we related it to bringing forward into manifestation our dream, goals, desires, and intentions. This week, we're speaking of it in a little bit deeper way, which is, not only are we looking to release something that might be blocking the manifestations, but we're thinking, is there something deeper for me to move into from my being nature? Is there some deeper healing available to me? If I'm holding on to expectations of myself, of others, what's under my process of moving forward of my desire? And this is very, very powerful work. I spoke about this a little bit on New Year's Eve, and I wanted to mention it again because many of you were not, available for the New Year's Eve service. But I mentioned that I use forgiveness as a way of life if I'm experiencing, for instance, a transition. So when I left my church in Tampa, which was such a gift to me, really, it was a gift to them and a gift to me for a short time. I was there about 3 years, and I thought I was going to be there one. They asked me for two, and I was there almost three. So right at 3 years, 1 month shy of 3 years, I should say. But before taking on my new job in Daytona, that was closer to home and all those things, really guided into that ministry, energetically, convenience wise, so many different ways. Before I took that new job in Daytona, I did a great deal of forgiveness work of myself as a minister. And because I did not want to take the old energy of that job into my new position with this new congregation, new people, new energy, new opportunity. I don't lose any learning I've had through all the years, of course, of ministry, but I didn't want to take any false expectations. I didn't want to take my fatigue from the driving because driving to Tampa was very difficult. Not only that, the church flooded when I was there, and it was just a lot of extra work. Well, I didn't want to take some of that energy into my new position because those aspects were difficult. So I didn't want to project my old energy from Tampa into Daytona. Now, the people in Tampa I loved. It was the North Tampa Church. I'm still in contact with them. I love them. I wish them the best. And it was a great time for me there. I just was not meant to be there long term. So as I moved into my new position, the release process was releasing the old energy and releasing myself from any expectations, any fatigue, just anything I might be holding on to. I didn't want to bring it into the new ministry. And even in the new ministry, I've already taken steps to do some inner work. I usually do it, once or twice a year for myself as a minister. If I start getting too myopic, like I want this, like I'll give you an example. Sorry, I kind of interrupted myself. What I started to say is if I get too myopic in what I want the ministry to be, and I'm not open enough to hear spirit, I can start to feel that now energetically. And I will do forgiveness work so I can free up that energy again and not be overly expecting something that's not realistic. So I started to say, I'll give you an example of that. And one of those examples was I thought in the first year at Daytona, I was going to go to 2 services instead of 1. Well, part of the culture of the Daytona church is that the Daytona church has a lot of what we call here in Florida snowbirds. They're here, half the year and gone half the year. And so in the summer, every time I started to do something, people would say, well, nobody's here. And I would say, well, I want to start a class. And somebody would say, well, nobody's here. And I finally said, well, somebody is here because we're having church every week. So, and they go, you know what? You're right. I said, so one thing is I want to change the way we're thinking about summer here, but I also need to get a clue and quit expecting the same numbers in summer that I'm expecting every other time. And so I need to do release work on my expectations. I even talked with the board about it. And I said, I need your help because I keep expecting people to be here and they're not here. Help me understand. Because, historically, I've had ministries where people are very regular in their attendance. And so it was something for me to get used to. And my expectation was based on the past. So even though I'd done the release work before coming into the ministry, the release work was on myself. There was more to forgive and more to release because as I got there, I started building up my expectations. And it was so funny because I released that. And then since then, our attendance keeps going up. a couple of weeks ago, we had a record attendance, and somebody said to me, "When are we going to have 2 services?" And I just burst out laughing. I said, "Well, soon, I hope." I said, "I'm just not sure about summer yet, so we're going to wait and see what God tells us." So rather than trying to force more services in the summer, we're going to pray on it. We're going to pray on it. We're going to see. We're going to see. We're going to see what energy comes forward. We're going to see what attendance does. So the forgiveness work, becomes a bit of a release valve for your process. And so rather than getting, this has to be this way, which is very easy to do when you have dreams, goals, desire, and intentions, when you're working with spirit on moving forward, and you enjoy seeing God's presence in your life and world, it's fun to set goals and see them manifest. So when they don't happen, or you have expectations that are not, coming forward, the forgiveness work becomes a little bit of a release valve, because it helps you release these unrealistic expectations and move back into the present moment, back into the Spirit of God, into a place of acceptance and peace. And my friends, isn't that what we all want? Of course. Now, as I say this, being a place of acceptance and peace does not mean there's not forward movement. It means the forward movement is spirit guided, and it's not being pushed by the egoic mind. So that was an example in the workplace. But maybe you have a son or daughter or a grandchild, and you want them to be something they're not. This process of forgiveness and release would be very, very good. Sometimes we think, if I can just push hard enough. No. It is reminding me of when we had my son on the show, and he and I talked about our stress-free Christmas, because all we were doing is pushing. And it was like we forgave ourselves for not doing what everybody else was doing. It was like, in a way, it was a forgiveness process in and of itself. But friends, this is highly unpopular to talk about, because, people say just make it happen. Well, when it comes to people and relationships, making it happen is a good way to repel people. So false expectations is really what leads to disappointments. Unrealistic expectations lead to disappointments. Forgiveness helps us move into acceptance, helps us move into a more realized state of being. And for me personally, in the forgiveness process, I feel like I should just speak to it real personally instead of just in these, wider terms. Inside, like literally in my heart, like in my chest, I just feel a feeling of spaciousness when I forgive. And especially if I forgive others, if there's this expectation that they're supposed to be different than they are, or be doing something different than they are. My work, as I forgive, is to just, it's a release of an expectation, but it's also a heart opening. It's like an expansiveness where I can see them for who they are, I can love them for who they are, and I can put my attention back on spirit working with me and my own life and world, and not worry about what everybody else is doing. And forgiveness heals, and forgiveness frees. And as I'm talking about all of this, I want to come back to the fact that forgiveness is not condoning bad behavior. It is not allowing yourself to be a doormat and people to treat you badly. Forgiveness is asking the Spirit of God to move in and through so that you can release any toxic held energy against another. Eric Butterworth, one of Unity's authors, said it this way, that unforgiveness ties you to the person that hurt you, or to, the person you're expecting things of. It ties you to them with a invisible steel beam. In other words, you can't see it, but this negative emotion ties you to the very person you want to forgive and you want to release. And so, especially if this person has hurt you, anger, fear, frustration, rage, this is going back and forth all the time energetically. And so forgiveness helps you release that energy. And, what I know is karma always, takes care of the other person. Now, that's not my job. God and their karma, they work all that out. My job is to release the negativity. My job is to forgive, to release, to let go, and allow that toxic old energy to move out of my body. And so this becomes the deeper work of forgiveness, that I can move into this greater awareness of God in life as I expand my heart, as I allow love to move in and through, and as I allow forgiveness to take hold here, and I can just release that energy up into the light. And that 70 times 7 that I'm often talking about, that I forgive, and then this person's name totally and completely, as you do that work, I forgive totally and completely 70 times for 7 days, my friends, you will feel a release. And that release will be lasting. Might you have to do it again? You might. And if you do it again. But I promise you, if you every single day for 7 days, write, I forgive in this person's name totally and completely, you will have some kind of shift. Forgiveness shifts the heart and the mind in a way that cannot really be described, but can be felt. That's why I wanted to try to describe how I felt. Like in my heart, it just feels spacious. Like I don't have some held down energy and expectation anymore. Forgiveness frees. Forgiveness heals. I think the reason, I love the 70 times 7 is it is right out of the scriptures. The disciples were asking Jesus, how many times do we forgive? 7 times? Jesus said, no. One scripture says 77 times, and another place, or another version, it says 70 times 7. So, but I like 70 times 7. I can get my mind around it. And what's the idea? Well, that number 7 is the number of creation. In other words, 70 times 7. That creates a new state of mind, a new way of being, a new state of consciousness that you carry with you. My friends, this is what we all want. We want to be in this realized state of consciousness, this state of awareness, where we know there is enough love for me, there's enough love for you. I don't have to expect of you. You're doing your own work. I'm going to do the work of my soul and consciousness as I forgive. So I hope this is making sense to you, my friends, that I want to review a few things, because I've said a lot today, that we are energetic beings, and that we talked about last week, using forgiveness to help you. If you have dreams, goals, desire, and intentions that aren't moving forward, that you use forgiveness to free that up. Then we talked about, being a little bit deeper in consciousness and working in ourselves. Like if we're having expectations of ourselves or others that aren't manifesting, or that they're not doing that we want them to do, that we move them into our forgiveness practice, which is really not about them, but about us and our expectation. And that forgiveness helps us free, helps us heal, helps us release negative energy. It helps us release toxic energy. It helps us release those energies that get stuck in the body, that when held on to can actually manifest into physical ailments, into getting sick all the time. There's a lot of research in the field of psychoneuroimmunology that really lends itself to this kind of mind-body connection. So forgiveness heals, forgiveness frees. And finally, we said energetically, that things flow better, things flow easier, forgiveness helps us feel more expanded. Literally, for me, it's at the level of the heart and my upper chest that I just feel more energy, more space, and more freedom as I walk through the world. And really, my friends, forgiveness is a way of life. And as we practice it, we move more into unconditional love. So you may want to try forgiveness if you're setting your dreams, goals, and desires. You may want to try forgiveness if you're, getting stuck and expecting others to be something they're not. You may want to try forgiveness simply if energy is feeling stuck and you don't feel like you're moving. If you're having a financial problem, anything that is not moving, apply forgiveness to it. If you haven't started your process yet, start with yourself, then move it out to others. Because remember, we only love others the way we love ourselves. That's just how it works. But my friend, please start doing the forgiveness work. It takes time, it takes energy. You will need to set aside a minimum of 15 minutes a day. If you do the 70 times 7 work, if you don't have time in one sitting, I would encourage you to do 35 times in the morning and 35 times at night. It takes less than 15 minutes to do that. And if you can do that, you will begin to move energy forward throughout your day. And as you do it morning and night, you'll carry that forgiveness energy, throughout the day. So, my friends, I hope you do it. And I hope you'll text me if you do. I would love to know that you're seeking to know God more and that you do the forgiveness work to help move your soul forward. There's nothing better to move you forward on the spiritual journey in a powerful, powerful way. And it will absolutely help you remember who you are and live that goodness, that holiness, and that sacredness in the world. So, my friends, we love you. We bless you. We're grateful for you. We're honored to receive your support because, friends, you keep us on the air, and we're happy to receive it and honored to support your journey. So I look forward to hearing from you and seeing you next week. Blessings on the journey, my dear friends.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Experience of the Soul podcast with Cynthia Alice Anderson. This show is made possible by listeners like you, and your support helps keep these conversations available to all. If this podcast has supported you, you're invited to share it with someone you love or support the show at cynthiaaliceanderson.com/donate. Produced by Kilgore Creative and a production of the Soulworks Group Incorporated. We are so grateful for you, and we are holding you in prayer for God's highest and best in your life. Blessings on the journey.